Now, Chinese car brands are fast becoming a hit with South Africans. Notably, it's the Chery and Haval attracting a lot of local attention. This is according to Naamsa's data. Overall, Chinese car brands are starting to outpace traditional car brand sales. And Phuti Mpyane, who's senior motoring analyst at Business Day, joined us for greater perspective on this trend. Phuti, a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Right, maybe we can speak about the popularity of these Chinese vehicles. Initially, I think it was a bit of a weird entrance. Let's talk about the initial penetration of these brands and why it's taken so long for local consumers to catch on.
Yes, we've had Chinese branded cars for many years. In fact, I think 2 decades at least, we could say that. It was around 2007 when we started seeing the first official subsidiary of a Chinese brand car. Previously, they were brought in by independent importers. And the cars then, you know, if you have to be honest, they were not up to scratch, you know. They had problems, issues with reliability, refinement, and all that. And at the same time, they also found a very healthy economy in South Africa, whereby people had the choice to say, well, I could buy this or not, you know, which is quite different today. Yes.
Let's talk about the environment that they find themselves in today and that have boosted, you know, this demand.
Definitely the economic meltdown. What that has created is that it has given South Africans a chance to have a car, what you call is a fantastic level of luxury, looks, but at very, very low prices. So you could say the demand for them is driven by affordability rather than anything else. And although we do see that the cars have also changed drastically, they are much better looking, much more refined, just as technologically savvy as your European brands. So we're seeing that just come into play. You know, the Chinese came here around 2018 again, where we saw like the Cherries now coming in strong. I think they found a market in good waiting for such pricing for products.
Let's talk about the German cars or the European cars, because of course, while we're seeing the increase of these Chinese cars, something's clearly happening with these German cars. In my mind, Phuti, they're just too expensive. You know, entry-level vehicles, what used to be known as an entry-level vehicle, are now close to R1 million, and that's just not where South Africans are. But is that all there is to it?
I suppose inflation, isn't it? But yes, look, we could say that German cars per se have become quite expensive for South Africans. However, at the same time, we could say that people may be affording to buy these German cars, but now because there's cheaper alternatives, they are now deciding rather to buy it down and save money and stretch the rand to do something else.
What do South Africans want in a car, Phuti?
Well, cheap. For one.
A good price. Okay.
Yeah, price is king.
Yeah.
And then obviously we also love trends in South Africa. So the SUV is trending big time. Everybody just wants an SUV. And the Chinese are able to offer a lot of SUVs from Haval, from Chery, and so many other brands which are coming, still coming. We've got about 8 now. We're expecting 3 more brands, Chinese, to come through with SUVs. So yeah, definitely South Africans want good price and an SUV.
Are the Chinese manufacturing cheaper vehicles? Is their manufacturing process cheaper than that of a European brand, or is it just the European car brands know they're luxury and the Chinese know they're not?
Very interesting. There's actually a probe happening overseas where, because a lot of them are actually state-owned, partially, so they get rebates from states, from the Chinese state to actually be able to price so low, you know, and at the same time we are seeing how they expand. Now we've got one brand which is actually planning to build cars right here in South Africa, so it will even be cheaper.
Very interesting. Now, of course, we are looking at this transition from internal combustion engines to new energy vehicles or EVs. Are the Chinese best suited here to really break into this market? Because if you think about it, Phuti, they're affordable now, which means if they should do the EV thing, they should still be the more affordable brands, and they stand a chance to benefit the most.
This is exactly what they're doing. They're quite bold in how they do their business. So they already offer Chinese electric vehicles in South Africa. We've got BYD. GWM has also just recently launched its first fully electric vehicle in South Africa. And there's so many more of them who actually do bolder things like fully electric double cab bakkies already being sold here in South Africa, with more coming. So they are definitely poised to actually cover that base of electric hatch, electric SUV, and even electric bakkies.
I want to talk about Toyota,
Yes.
because I think Toyota is one of those brands that's had a big stronghold on South Africa, from the Yaris to the Quantum to the Land Cruiser. You know, it really offers quite a bit of variety. It's not Chinese, it's Japanese, and it's been a huge driver of vehicle sales in South Africa. Where does it fit into the way we're starting to think about our vehicles? It's obviously not luxury like the German vehicles. It's not a Chinese vehicle either. Where does that sit in the mind of a consumer?
Yeah, Toyota is an interesting one. I mean, globally, they are one of the brands who could say we're not willing to actually shift into the electric car sphere. They literally said, this is not happening now. We're looking around 2050. And look, what has happened since then, we've seen a great change globally in terms of demand for electric cars. We are seeing that demand slow down. Meaning that Toyota could have been correct all along in saying, hey, you know, later on. But we're also seeing, from a South African perspective, new developments. Toyota Lexus, which is Toyota's luxury wing, has just recently announced that 2024, 2025, they're bringing the first electric car into South Africa, as well as Toyota, the big one, saying by sometime this year or next year, they'll be bringing their first hybrid Hilux. So we see movement into that space as well, while at the same time looking at what's happening globally.
I want to talk about hybrids because they're obviously not on the extreme side with EVs. Are they what we might see in a transitionary phase, the more practical thing, while we also try to figure out what new energy vehicles might really be, if not only electrical?
Indeed. Hybrids have been banded as the ultimate solution. Where South Africa is concerned, we have a problem of traveling long distances. Yes, we may live in Joburg and, you know, live 5 kilometers from our work, where we shop, where we take our kids to school, and that would work well with a fully electric vehicle. However, we also live outside. We go to Durban, which is far. We go to Lalini,
yes,
which is quite far, where you know, electric car infrastructure has not been done. So hybrids sort that out, in that when you are in an urban setting, you are able to use a fully electric mode and actually save on fuel. And then when you have to go and see Gogo, you definitely use the engine as well as the electric vehicle.
Very, very interesting, that dynamic. Before I let you go, Phuti, with that said, you know, as we see South Africans going for quality and affordability, can we expect that to be the trend, at least in the short term? Do we think that, you know, the likes of BMW and Mercedes will be able to return to being, you know, the aspirational brands? Or we also find that South Africans are keen to buy down when it comes to vehicles and prioritize other things?
We can certainly hope so. It will be interesting to see what happens when the economy goes back into what we call a robust situation where people can afford to buy whatever that they want. It will be interesting to see whether now at that point will people literally go back to the legacy brands and say, I've always been a BMW, Mercedes or Audi fan, or will they actually say, we're sticking around with these cheaper Chinese, there's nothing wrong with them, we're enjoying them, and we just continue. We'll see. Only the future can tell.
Only the future will tell. Phuti, it's a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Business Day Senior Monitoring Reporter Phuti Mpyane.